Good morning. It's 10:01, a synchronistic moment, and we're 9 seconds into this cowboy show, and I'm not quite Cowboy Bob, but almost, and it's the morning ramble. Well, let's see. Let's leave this up against the counter. There we go. Oh, look at that hand. Oh, there you go. So it's the day after last night's performance art piece, and that's my day. You know, that's what I deal with every day, right? And it's like from the surreal to the sublime, and that's what life is. And there are all these channels that people have sent me, and I look at them. I can't remember the name of them, but they're all pretty much about, oh, it's terrible, the world's ending, and the magnetic flux is fluxing, and the sun is sunning, and oh my God, what are we going to do? And all those rich people are running off to New Zealand. Well, we have friends in New Zealand, right? And if they were to tell you what's going on, it's like, yeah, don't come here. Because wherever you go, there you are. I think that's tonight's chat. Wherever you go, there you are. Let's see. Pattern recognition. You know, we are like mice in a maze. Oh, let's see. Wherever you go, there you are. Alexa, stop. You know, she's worse than a wife. No, but all my wives were really good, so I can't say that. She's worse than Glenn Close in Deadly Attraction, Viper Attraction, Pneumatic Attraction. I mean, those folks last night who were going on John's channel about, you know, a flat Earth. Really? Like I said, I lived on a Caribbean island, right? And where I lived, the little port town was over here. It was called Tortola. Back in the day, there were two towns, one on either side of the island. And there were no real roads because it was kind of a volcanic island, so it kind of went straight up, right? And there were some roads that kind of went in a little bit, but that's it. Then there were paths, and right. But there was these two towns that had the stores and the places where boats docked and got provisioned. But the beauty of Tortola was all the way around that island, there were these amazingly beautiful, beautiful beaches. And you couldn't get there but by boat. And so the rich people with the big yachts would come in and get all stocked up and then go off to one of those little beaches that had nobody. And it's like going to Sandals or hedonism, but nobody's there, right? And it's beautiful. And there's no toxic waste, and there's no feces kind of floating in. Where I lived in Brazil, in Buzios. Again, this was a paradise, but we were 200 miles up from Rio, and depending, sometimes they'd have a storm or the tides would, and our beaches would be full of red tide, dead fish, and feces from Rio, you know? And that was 1988, I think, 89, around there. Maybe 87, somewhere in there. And, and that's why I'm glad I did all my traveling in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, because it's really trashed. But wherever you go, there you are, in that it's the day after. Meaning. So, look at my last night's chat on Dreamy Dreamland, right? And, I'm not a cinematographer. I'm a good photographer, but I'm not, I've done, I kind of and I know what light does and what it doesn't do, but I don't care. Meaning, like last night when we were downstairs in those bright lights will pick up what do you think? I have a beard. So you can't see my whatever's down here and over here. This is all you see. And why do I wear a hoodie? Well, mostly because to keep my head warm, because this house is cold. It's 7,000 square foot concrete castle. And at best, you can kind of keep it not frozen, right? But so you leave something on your head and all your body heat stays in your body, right? 98.6, right? 6 minutes and nobody. But that's okay. You're off doing something. I'm just saying, I'm happy to be here. And if you're worrying about your double chin or your puffy eyes, I got pretty puffy. I've had puffy eyes since I was 6. That's why people, you look like an owl. I've been looking that way since, I was born. And when I was a little kid, from birth till about 14, I was a little peanut. And I never I was running around like, my mom, my grandma, I was so hyperactive. She used, and this is no lie, she would walk me a good 100 blocks every day. As soon as we got up, had breakfast, did our little thing around the house, we hit the street. It was a nice day. If it was not a nice day, we would walk to the, over to Columbia, their big library, and go into their library. And I would just go pull out these books they had a big engineering department. She put me over there. I pull out these books on the floor. Nobody be there. No one complained. This little, 4-year-old is like pulling out the books. I didn't rip up the books or draw in them, but I took them out and I looked at all the machines in these books. A big engineering thing with all these generators and dams and all kinds of wild and crazy things that were built between the 1890s and the 1950s. And that's when technology was technology. And I was just looking at that stuff. Weaving machines, printing machines. And little did I know that 10 years later, I'd be working for Grandpa Stoll fixing those machines, right? It all works out that way, If you let yourself, if you don't worry about how your eyes or your chin or how fat you are or any of those, and you live, you consume, not live, you consume a moderate amount. Now, I, did my little experiment with hedonism and mass consumption in, 2000, well, really, from, when did I start working for the boys? 94 to 2014, at 18 years. That's a lot of chocolate cake. I was living in the swimming pool of chocolate mousse, right? Now, back in the day when I was an electrician in the city in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I walked. I didn't have a truck. I did have a truck, but, That was later on when I had a real business and employees and stuff. But when it was just me, I just have 2 bags of tools, about 70 pounds, about 40 pounds each. And I'd walk 50, 60 blocks with those. Man, I was in good. I didn't have to go to the gym, and I worked in all these factory buildings in Soho and all over Lower Manhattan that they didn't have elevators; they had stairs. Right? Uh, I mean, they had elevators, but that was for the stuff to go up and down. And unless I hit it right, I'd have to wait 10 minutes to get an elevator ride. I'd just walk up the stairs. So I was in pretty good shape. And if you, from your younger days all the way, I didn't really become lethargic or not doing anything until, 89, 90. No, not even. 92. 92 on. Didn't do much except sit, in libraries and read books and interview people and, be in boardrooms and meeting rooms and stuff like that. Didn't really do any exercise whatsoever, and I was living the life. I don't know how those guys in Madman stayed so in good shape. I never saw Don Draper working out, So that's the life I led. I didn't drink that much. I wasn't a big drinker. But when these guys went out to lunch, those big fancy restaurants, yeah, I'll have 2 steaks. I'll have 3 lobsters. You got any patties? Right. So I did that for 18 years. It's amazing I'm alive. And I showed a picture of me standing next to my dad. I was like 3 times bigger than he was. And I still, from that photo on, I packed on another 120 pounds. I was pushing 500 pounds. Pretty amazing I'm alive, And my endocrinologist says that I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows. Oh, look, it's turned into 12 minutes and 17 seconds. So I was going to, no, that's the clock. Can't have gone from 10 a.m. 01 to 12:20. And then I said, no, that's the counter. So I've only been talking for 12 minutes and 32 seconds. So everything in moderation, everything in service to love's co-creation, and always be there for your fellow man. Now, you don't have to give your shirt off the back. You don't have to freeze to death for the other guy if he's not smart enough to, have another, have a hoodie. But you can help people out. You can be there for all your relations. You don't. See, your life isn't here for you to accumulate stuff, because that's an illusion. You're here to ascend to your higher modality of your consciousness, right? And so I've been around long enough. I've seen enough wars. I was a photojournalist, but I didn't go, I wasn't like Ouija, or I didn't take the picture of the car crash. My whole thing was to relate to people and capture their emotion, right? So my photographs, even though I was a photojournalist, I was, journaling the human experience, not the car crash. The humanity of it. No, not that. Right. And I got to a place where I belonged to a photo collective, and they would send me out on shoots. I got sent to Sarajevo to shoot the Olympics. That was great. Man, I stayed in the bathroom in the room I stayed at the hotel was bigger than my apartment in New York, right? It was like Louis XIV. It was the fanciest everything, and it was the Russian, in the Russian satellite states, Yugoslavia was at the top of the heap of the economic, everyone lived the best there, had the best everything, right? And when I was in that hotel room, I basically, went in, pinched a loaf in the toilet, very nice toilet, and then I wiped my butt, and there was only 6 squares, not a royal roll of toilet paper, 6 squares, right? And this toilet paper was like sandpaper, it's like, ugh. Anyway, I used it all up, and still, and I wasn't going to use the towel, so I jumped in the shower, showered myself, Didn't have a bidet like the rest of Europe had, but so I jumped in the shower, cleaned myself off, dried myself off. I had a nice big, you know, whatchamacallit, a robe, a bath towel robe with the insignia of the place I was staying in. Anyway, I pick up the phone. That looks like it came from a 1923 movie of Nazis. Well, I try in every day and every way, right? That's what I'm here for, guys. I'm your Sensei Al Bob. I love you so. And the little smidgen that I can help makes me happy. I have nothing. I mean, no money. I live on $307 a month. I live on the kindness of strangers' couches. Don't own anything. No, I had lots of properties. I was a landlord. Blah 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 blah. And in actuality, I feel released, right? And but all of these morons who are like the leak program, or there's tons of these things that come across my thing up on the bar up there saying, "Hey, look at me." And I look at them, and I don't watch them. People go, "Did you watch the whole thing?" I said, "No, I just kind of, skipped through it. If something interesting, I stopped." And but everybody's talking about the singularity, blah blah blah. This is well, kids. I told you the window's open, but it's not the end of times. This is an opportunity. Like I talked about the last half an hour last night. We have an opportunity here. We are the cadre. We are the clan. We have this bond. Every night we go into state, and all of our relations become one. And we see in our Akashic record, our subconscious mind, we see going over the bridge in our id. We see when we go into our superconscious mind, the sanctuary of our own choosing. This is love's co-creation. This is all the information. It's all here. You don't have to go to a library like I did all those years. No. Just your Akashic record. Everything's here. And all you have to do is ask the librarian, "Hey, I want to know about so-and-so." It's better than Google. Because Google, basically, at best, is just an opinion. If you think Wikipedia is, this is what it is. This is the truth. Ooh. Sorry, kids. No. It changes every day. It's like 1994 when Winston's at his job at the Ministry of Truth. And, for the last 100 years, they've been at war with Panjami, and their buddy's been Oatmeal. And now Oatmeal is their enemy, and Panjami is their best buddy, and he has to rewrite history. And he's going, This is when he kind of goes, Instead of it just being his job, he's going, It's like my brother during the Vietnam the Vietnam War, I knew what it was. I kept, seeing things. My brother went up to college. He, way up in Vermont. And my brother and I had this relation. If you've ever seen the movie or read the book or seen the play, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. That was my brother. The guy who was the uncle, the dad, the older brother character, and then the kid. Well, my brother was the older character guy. I was the kid. And we kept switching the partners. When we had the bedroom together in my parents' house, he was a great brother. He really was. He never, he could have beat me up, screamed at me. No, he never did that, He was a big model maker. And one time, I don't know what got in my head, but he had all these airplanes. My dad's in the Air Force. He had all these airplanes on a wire across our room, right? And I was bouncing on the bed all by myself. I had to, my mom, I had to entertain myself, as long as I didn't blow anything up or burn the house down and kept relatively quiet. It was okay. So I'm bouncing up and down on the bed, and my head hits one of these airplanes, and I go, wow. And I kind of, next time I bounce, I grab it, and it breaks the wire, and all the airplanes come flying down. And so I'm going, like that. And I make a pile of these airplanes. I don't know where I found the matches, but I set them on fire. And it was quite interesting because there was a window open and the plastic burned. And I was like, ooh, wow, yeah, man. Ooh, all that glue, ooh. And it didn't burn the house down. It didn't even burn the rug. It just kind of burned all of the airplanes into a gelatinous ick. And all of that smoke didn't go throughout the whole house. Went right out the window. So no one knew I did that. And then it didn't burn like all the way dripping through the rug and then into the floor and setting the house on fire. No, it just kind of burnt until it was like a plastic airplane chocolate chip cookie. And, or pancake. It was like bigger pancake, not a cookie. Anyway, so I kind of keeled over and went into really dreamy dreamland. And when my brother came back from school, I woke up to him like, "Are you okay?" Because I was, and I go, "Ugh." And he then looks over at the pancake and says, "What happened here?" I said, "Well," I told him, so I was jumping on a thing. I grabbed one of your airplanes. They all came down. I played with them. I found some matches. I set them on fire. Now, your normal older brother, after building all those models, and he was a real model maker, real fastidious, and painted them and everything. And he comes home and he sees like all this, days of work turned into a plastic pancake. Most brothers would beat the crap out of you. He didn't do that. He said, "Hey, you got to learn why I do this," right? And so he had a closet full of boxes of models, cars, and he liked cars and airplanes that, he still had, I'm going to build this one tomorrow. And so he put that, and we built one of those models together. He put the wire back up and put it up there. I said, "Okay, see, okay, right?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yep, never do that again." And I didn't. I didn't mess with his models or his stuff. I mean, that was a great lesson of don't mess with people's stuff, right? And like, I don't mess with anybody's stuff. Here I am at John's thing at his liege. So I try to keep him on the happy side. And so I don't go, I don't mess with anything, right? And even like there was the storage thing upstairs, big space, it was supposed to be a whole nother apartment. And John just kind of stuffed things. He gets a lot of stuff. And he's got all these cardboard boxes. And the thing was full of cardboard boxes. All I did was, with a straight edge, folded them flat. Didn't even throw them away. I kind of put them in a corner. And then the other stuff I just put in order. When I owned this place, I had all these shelves. So I just kind of put everything in order. Didn't, just put it so he could see where it was. And found all his power tools and set them out very nicely. And we had about, 5 or 6, brooms and these were all things I had gotten here and I just left in here for him. And when I left the first time, and vacuum cleaner, I didn't need any of that. So I left it here. So it was all like buried under cardboard, so I made everything nice. And he came back from, California or wherever he was. And he said, "Wow, who did this?" Well, the only person who could have done me, He couldn't believe I would, straighten it up. But, I said, "No, John, this is for you, Anyway, so I didn't go through any of his stuff. But last night during the live chat when when I had enough of downstairs, I came up and I wanted, do our live chat. And it was about 7 p.m. So, I went into my little cubicle and closed the door. It was warm in there, right? And he followed me right in and was going on, just watch it, So I said, well, this is like performance art, So usually I have to, like right now, okay, now there's 2 of you. Usually I have to, now it's 24 minutes. Usually the gang doesn't show up until about 30 minutes. So I said, this is like performance art. And go look at the beginning of last night. I have to deal with that. That's my everyday with John, every day. Every day. So anyway, he came in there. Normally he's like, because he's scared that I might be naked. As I sleep in my, in the buff. I can't stand clothes on. Anyway, so he comes in and he goes, I have, all my medicines, all my vitamins, all my potions that I've made to keep me alive, you know, and things that you guys have sent me. And I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the help you guys sent me, you know. And if you want to send me anything, go on Western Union and send me a few dreckels, you know. I don't charge for this, but you know, my teacher said you can't charge for this, but you can take a gratuity, you know. So you can send something Western Union to Al Martino in Roanoke, Virginia, and then you know send me the tracking number at the Dude Awake 42, and that is very, very, very you know good. It works great. You know, a lot of you have done that, and I really again appreciate it because what's truly amazing is that it always comes just like I live on $300 a month. That's what I get for Social Security, give or take. I mean, they always screw with it, you know. You know, I don't get any health care, but they charge me almost $200 for Medicare insurance. You know, it's like useless. Or Medicaid. I always confuse the two. You know, pushing 70. Anyway, he just went through all my stuff and showed it on his channel. It was dark; you probably couldn't see anything, but he was so unbelievable. Curious George, the cheeky monkey, and I have somebody's, you know, in my herb store, my vitamin store downtown. They start selling, is it CBG? You know, hemp oil, and that stuff is the bomb. I have to tell you, it really helps my eyeballs, and it really helps my joints more than anything, right? And he's drugs. Ah, look at that, you know. And it was like, gee, thanks, John. You know, scream that over the World Wide Web. Why don't you? Right. So that's why I'm giving a little disclaimer here. And he just went right, and he then just went into, like I said, go watch it, right? And he's so I went to him. I had my little flashlight. I turned it on, and you know, he's like. You know, if you want to be buff, well, be buff. Otherwise, when you get older, you look like me, right? Now, I've lost a lot of weight just to stay alive. And I still lose weight because my metabolism changed and I don't want that cookie, you know? I don't need that chocolate chip, you know? Yeah. You know, his mom sent, you know, she's his mom. She's trying to be nice. So she made all these cookies, right? And this kind of special Italian yummies, and a bunch of stuff, you know, stuff that he liked when he was a kid. So she, you know, packed it up in a Christmas box. Anyway, he said, oh, she's trying to, you know, make me, you know, no. So anyway, he put it all down here. It's all stacked up down here. And because he was eating it all upstairs. And it's been down here for a couple of days. And I had one of her, she makes these really excellent cookies that I can't even, they're like the best. You know, they're crunchy, they're soft, they're vanilla and, you know, coconut. And they're really, and got little fruits in them. I had one, you know, the box there is still full of them, you know. And maybe in a couple of days, you know, I'll have another. But I won't eat the whole thing because it would kill me. You know, I got diabetes. I can't eat that. I eat a slice of bread, my blood sugar goes up by 20 points. And so I can have one cookie and go, oh, that's really nice, right? And I have no problem looking at them. You know, it's not like, no, because my metabolism has changed. And, you know, so I don't work out, but I do move around. You know, I mean, I can't work out. My feet are not connected to my ankle. You know, my neuropathy has just kind of dissolved a bunch of bones in my body. They're not coming back. No matter how many weights I lift, they're not coming back. And I don't know if you've seen me, like last night on John's video, he caught me going up the stairs. And I have to be real, I mean, wherever I walk, I have to be very aware where I'm putting my feet. That's hard. Let's see. Let's see. Now we should do your astrology chart. See what Neurological year, you sounds like 9 years for you. Yep, could be. Truth reveals. Get a hold of me on my, the Dude Awake 42, and we can have a nice little conversation. I'll give you so. Truth revealed. You are a tarot card reader. You are a reader. You know. I'm a reader. I've been around all of this stuff for a good 50 years, and I know some of the, the old crone. You want to know a tarot card reader. You want to know astrologer. You want to know numerology. That lady, that spirit, because she was more than a lady. She knew friggin' everything. She could just look at it. That's how I learned how to cold read. That and the gypsies that I hung out with. There was a kind of police show, I don't know, 10 years ago. And it was this guy who, pretended he was psychic. He could just do cold readings. He hung out with gypsies, right? And he ended up, and he got to be really good. He got to be on TV, and this serial killer killed his family, his daughters and his wife, in a really nasty way, and left him alive to suffer, right? So he, vowed, and he kind of went nuts and, tried to, and then he ended up, the police picked him up, and he was in this, precinct, and it just happened synchronistically to be in the right one, because the lady who ran it, who was the captain, she was really smart, and she kind of was very empathetic. And anyway, that show ran for at least 8-10 years. What was it called? Something like Open Minds or something, And so he would pretend, he would do his huckster thing of, I'm a psychic. And all he was really observant. And so the police folks realized, wow, this guy is better than any detective we have. So the police captain said, okay, we're going to hire him as a consultant. And, so he was part of the team. And he could see things that the rest, because the others had been trained to be police detectives. And so they saw it that way. He was saying, like, this, that, and the other thing. So that was, all the people I learned from. So, But I would love it if you are an astrologer and that's what floats your boat. I would love it if you did my natal chart and, put it up for the gang to see, so you guys can have, listen, every time I do one of these things, I spin things up shamanically. So you know who I am. You don't need to look at my astrology chart, But if you like doing it, if you're good at it, you want to practice on your Sensei Al Bob, I'm all for it. So get a hold of me over there at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And so, what story was I telling? Well, staying in shape. Just move and live in moderation. Number one. Number two, what keeps you in shape is being there for others and not just yourself, And when you help people, don't complain about it or try to wear it on your sleeve, I help lots of people all day long. I see that as my job. You guys, for instance, And, I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my bills? I have nothing. When you have nothing, you don't worry about your bills, So, and I've died so many times, death don't scare me, I am in constant pain. I don't know how much more pain that, what do you, oh yeah, you got to put my thumb in it. Oh, that's nice. No, pain isn't fun, but you can deal with it. If you go into state, there is no pain, And I'm teaching you guys how to do it every day in every way, right? So let's see what you chatted. You've thrown up some chats up there. Let's take a look at them. Ooh, got a few here. Thank you. We should do astrology. Yep. Numerology. Yep. So truth reveals. Like I said, get a hold of me. The Dude Awake 42. We have a nice little conversation. And if you live in America, give me your phone number. I'd love to talk. all of you guys, anybody in America, where I can call you, that my phone does not go outside the borders. It's a Donald Trump, it's got the wall around it. And that wall they want to build, babies, that wall is not to keep people out, it's to keep people in. Okay, I'll do, yes, I have done, numerology, cold readings, etc. Yep, sounds fun. I'm on the Gypsy Brew. Good. If it weren't for volunteers, our society would collapse. Exactly. Actually, if it wasn't for love's co-creation, and I don't see myself as a volunteer, because volunteers basically do that, basically for. I don't want to say this. I never try to say things carte blanche. All people do this, all that is that. But volunteerism has, I was a volunteer fireman, right? So I lived across from this firehouse, and because they went out the other way and down this road that I never saw, I just saw it as a building. Now the highway patrol, kind of whatever they call it, station was next to it. I should have had some kind of idea. But I used to, live downtown Ithaca, and I told the story about the rocket scientist girlfriend. So first I lived out on the farm, way out Manita, way out, maybe 30 miles from Cornell. And the lady who got me into Cornell, her, why she was being generous, and we're old buddies. And yes, she came and got me, and just picked me up and threw me in her car and drove me to Ithaca. Because I was in a position where I was so emotionally down because I lost somebody I truly loved. And I was working in a job that was relatively dangerous. And I kept pushing the envelope. And my superior said, Al, stop doing that. You're going against total protocol. But every time I did that, it worked out great. No one died. Everything was saved. My captain, got an extra star, whoops. And that's kind of what he said to me one day. He goes, you got to stop doing this. And I said, well, I'm still here. He goes, yeah, but then he kind of gets close to me, closed the door, and goes, but, since you've been doing this, our numbers, we're the best in the whole department. They're looking at me to be, in the upper echelon because I do this so good, but it's only because you keep things from exploding and going nuts and everyone shooting each other, and I had gotten shot because I had walked in front of the bullet. Because if I didn't walk in front of the bullet, I knew that all hell was going to break loose and probably 20 people, and mostly children, would have died. So I walked in front of the bullet, and I didn't care. It was like I was emotionally upset to the point where I had lost someone I truly loved, and I talk about this anymore, I start crying. And I didn't care. And I died before, and I kind of knew that it'd be okay. And it was. Meaning, bang, I got shot, but I got shot in a place where there were no organs, no veins, no nothing. It went in and out, which is the best kind of bullet you can have. It's a low caliber, low velocity bullet, so I, didn't blow parts of my body away. And basically, blood went everywhere for the first 10, 20 seconds, right? In the way I got shot, which hand? I think I got shot right there, right? You can't even see it. I mean, if you really look, it's like right there. But you can't even see it. And on this side, it's, it's like that. It's like, but blood went everywhere, and everyone, and all these people knew me, cared about me, knew that I was the authority, but I never pressed it. I always said, come on, let's not let it go any further. And so, I went on the floor, blood's everywhere, it's, big puddle, but it really wasn't that much blood. When my friends, the EMTs from my section came and kind of put me on a gurney, and he basically put his fingers like that, stuck some gauze around my hand, with a pad on either side. By the time I got to the emergency room, the guy said, What's the problem? Stop bleeding. You don't even have to take anticoagulants. I don't even need to put a stitch in this. So he kind of did this other thing and cleaned it out and made sure I wouldn't get, gave me a couple of shots and sent me on my way. But, the word around the, housing project and that part of the city, Al got shot. He did this, and that my boss said, you got to stop doing that. But keep it up. And, if they ever kill you, we'll give you what they call, what was it? An inspector's funeral, where the bagpipe, So that's what I had to look forward to. But this woman, friend of mine, old-time buddy, that I've known from the Theosophical, she's a really interesting woman, another, great scholar. We were in different universities, reading books together. Anyway, she was head of a department in Cornell, and she came down and said, you got to stop this. And she was bigger than I was, picked me up and threw me in a car. And she had picked up a few things from where I was staying. And just, whatever you need, we'll come back and get it. And she drove me up to Ithaca. But her agenda was that she had just married a guy, bought a farm, and she had gone down to Brazil because I told her my adventures about Brazil and went and studied some things. And she came across crystals, and she was, esoteric. She was New Age before New Age, and she was shamanic healer, and so she had used crystals. Man, she found all these crystals and said, whew. And when she was buying them at like from Madame Kluver, they're costing a fortune. She went down there; they were like pennies on, So she filled boxes of them and sent them back to her address, and they showed up when So she made connections, went down there, made connections. She had a visa. She was being an anthropologist. Anyway, so she was one of the first people to import crystals from Brazil. And then smart girl, she went all around America to the college towns and went into the malls and got these. She went to the mall guy, says, I want to set up a little wagon in the mall. I don't want to rent a thing. I just want a little 2 square feet, right? And maybe a little closet where I can store stuff. And the guy says, yeah, we can do that. Maybe $30-40 a month. So she went across America and did that. And then she found high school girls who were attractive, and told them stuff about, gave them a book on crystals and told her, she found the woo-woo girls that she could find. And the rest is history. She made millions. So she put me in her department to keep an eye on it, had me live in her farm that she just bought a 500-acre dairy farm with a beautiful 19th century house, like 10 bedrooms and just amazing place, 4 barns, right? And paddocks and everything, fenced in for $35,000 because she bought it in 1986 savings and loan. And this bank just took it away from an old farmer guy, and she bought it for like less than 50 grand, and tractors, the clothes, the silverware, they just threw him out and, locked it up. And she bought it for like zip, 500 acres and all that. And my husband, who would bang her shoes like you couldn't believe, that's why they were married. Every time she was home, the house would shake, right? And what she wanted me to do is live there and keep an eye on him. And his daddy was a chicken farmer, right? So this kid kind of looked like a chicken. So he was going to be a chicken farmer. He was going to be a dairy farmer. And so they bought this dairy farm. It had the milking thing that you could milk 200 cows. I mean, this was a big facility, big. And this was up there in the rolling dairy hills of Ithaca, New York area. I forgot what counties that were. Anyway, so I was there, and the guy was friggin' nuts. Nice guy, drank a bit too much beer and was nuts. And he was a computer program. So during the day, he had because around Ithaca, around Cornell, there are all these like, that movie where the kid, Phyllis Bueller's Day Off, that guy plays this kid and he makes himself an atomic bomb, right? And, and this town he's in is Cornell, right? And all around Cornell are some very spooky laboratories and businesses and things that make widgets and gizmos. Anyway, so that's kind of where I spent 3 years. And so this woman came and got me out of New York, drove me straight up there so I wouldn't step in front of another bullet and that I would have a different life. And I wasn't in New York because being in New York reminded me of everything that I lost of this person that I loved dearly. So, and if you want to read that story, it is in my blogspot, XRATTED blogspot. And that's a very interesting story about loss and death and all of that. And I have one novel there of my 26 novels, and I only have 3/4 of it. I don't even have the last quarter because I didn't want to overpower. I just want to give you a little taste so you might read the rest of the stuff. And what I'm really looking for is somebody like our friend there who wants to read do my astrology chart. I want somebody who's an editor and in the publishing world and knows. I mean, this is a blog. It's set up to be. It's called Griot Publishing. I want it to be an open house publishing thing. Like Amazon. And that's what the Griot's for. We're just building it. There's a ton of talent in you guys. And if we all work together, we can spin things up. We don't have to worry about the aliens or the, hidden hand or the sock puppets or, the sun blowing up or the electromagnetic pulse. But unless we start co-creating with love, that stuff's going to happen. That's sure for sure. Because like I said, we're right in this open window. Anything can fly through. Everything's an opportunity, but anything can fly through. So it's up to us, like I said last night, it's up to us to bring everyone home, bring it all in, make, all our relations. Go swimming in the lake of the link. And to, go over and hold Lucifer and pat him on the back and say he's a good boy that loves co-creation, loves him the most. And, it's time to stop. Yep. And nature, again, I'm a scholar, so I'm kind of stickler for words and where they come from and what they mean. And what we do with them. So, nature, right? One of the things that annoyed me is how the commerce world takes words that I like and then trashes them. And so back in the day of the little brouhaha over what genetically modified organisms and organic, basically, the devil and those companies, the really nasty company, the German guys, Bayer, just purchased every genetic everything. Anyway, their American version, I forget their name, but they're the guys who, genetic corn and, put the pesticides in the corn. Anyway, they went to the Supreme Court because their corn tassels would blow over on the organic farmers thing, and those guys complained because now their corn was GMO'd. And so that court case got all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was owned. So basically the Supreme Court said, well, if that GMO corn tassel flies over to your farm, not only does the big nasty corporation own your corn, they own your farm. Get off. And not only that, we're going to decide what's organic. And the Supreme Court said that anything grown in dirt is natural and organic. So going back to nature sometimes, you know. So, going to nature is like, here, going back to the originator of everything, the great creator, which is love's co-creation. Right. So, when you said, when Truth Revealed said, time to come back to nature-based practices, we really have to say, time to come back to love's co-creation. Yes, entropy of dualism. That's a real, see again, this is when we start having chats like this, we're getting to the point where I'm saying we have to define this new aesthetic, right? That's why we have the umbrella of the Humanities Artist Trust International. Humanity meaning all our relations, but if we call it all our relations, everyone's, what does that mean? When we say humanities, kind of, and also when we use the word humanities, we're plugging into every university because every university has a humanities department, right? Artist trust. I mean, you can't trust, the pedophile. You can't trust, the only people you can trust is the artist trust. And the only artist you can trust is the artist in the first person, which is the savage, the indigenous, right? The guys who drew those paintings on the cave walls, right? That's the artist you trust. Not the advertising agent, not the guy who invented the Santa Claus. We all love him, the guy who kind of looks like me, who owns that Santa Claus in the red suit and the beard and the bowl full of jelly. Who owns that? Who invented that? Coca-Cola. Every time you see that Santa Claus, every department store or mall during Christmas time that has that Santa and Santa's land, Coca-Cola is getting a cut. Everybody gets a cut. You're owned. Your birth certificate gives not you the ownership, it gives the state. You drive around and you say, incorporated village, incorporated city, incorporated state. What does that mean? They're corporations. They don't represent you. So this is a kind of aesthetic. And that's why we have the aesthetic, Institute for Aesthetically Adept, you guys and gals, appropriate technology, Every chat we do where we go into state, that is the appropriate technology. Every time I say the Our Father and Hail Mary to protect us and say, and every day and every way we take the peace of the earth, that is that is the alternative and appropriate technologies, right? So we have to put it in a juxtaposition that all of these sock puppets, all of these corporate institutions, all of these hidden hands, all of the powers that shouldn't be, will embrace this. We'll eat it up like and then we will have injected this alternative aesthetic into the corporate, and it'll change. It'll become, serving love's co-creation, right? And that's when we can, go up to Satan and put him over. Oh, it's okay, buddy. We love you. Look, there's love's co-creation. There's mom. He never, your parents never stopped loving you, Satan. They just let you do your thing until you could understand who and what you were. And that's why we're here. We're here to understand who and what we are and what's the meaning of it all, And the meaning of it all, what is to be happy. And to be happy is to make others happy, right? And all the great, sages, Jesus, Vishnu, Buddha, that's pretty much what they're saying. Don't worry about death. Don't worry about, the Ferrari in the driveway. Don't worry about your double chin, You're born, you grow up, you get old, you die. You're born, you get up. Right? It's like, and that's what every day is. Every day I wake up, my eyes pop open. I'm in amazing pain, screaming pain. And I go, praise Jesus. It's a miracle. I'm still here. And then I meditate. Sometimes it takes me, just a blink of an eye and I'm okay. And then I, get my feet on the ground, put my braces on my ankles with my socks and shoes and pants. And normally it's cold now. I wear my pants and this thing to bed, put the blankies over me. And sometimes I don't, I do like sleeping in the buff. So, 55 minutes and 47 seconds. Okay, anything you guys want to start talking about? The seasonal shift will bring magical energy. Bring magical energy related to the feminine aspect of the goddess of the moon beginnings. Goddess, again, love's co-creation does not have a gender. Now I'm a big fan of the goddess. Every woman I meet, I treat as the goddess. Everything that grows, when that's why I like gardening, because I love, I wait till that little thing pops out of the ground and grows, and then it gets big, and I talk to it, and I weed it. I don't use any chemicals, right? And then it grows, and then I eat it, and that's like the most. And you know what I really love to do? I can't really do the gardening anymore, but what I do that really is amazing is sprouts. You get a bag of sprouts for $2 or $3, and you get a joint compound, food grade 5-gallon bucket with a lid. You cut out the top of the lid. You get some screen, right? You throw a handful of those seeds in there. Put the thing down so the screen's out, so the light can get in, the air can get out, and you can pour water in, and then pour water out. That's all you got to do, right? Wash the thing out. Throw the seeds in. Put some water in, pour it out, put it in the sun. Not so it gets baked, but just so it gets sunlight, And do that 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 days. That whole 5-gallon bucket will be full of green stuff you can eat. You can't beat that. You just can't beat that. Seasonal shift. Okay, we got that one. What about self-defense? Our human nature is under attack from every angle. Jesus died for our sins already. We have the right to fight back politically, use violence if necessary. Nope, can't do that. Sorry. So I lived in an ashram, right? And my sensei, he was a Buddhist, Japanese monk, Shinto priest. Not kind of Buddhist, but Shinto priest. And this guy could kill you 40 different ways, but he didn't have to. First thing we did was learn how to breathe, right? Next thing we did, we learned to go into state. Next thing we did was learn how to make a cup of tea. Who knew? Want to learn how to balance yourself and the world, learn how to do the tea ceremony, right? So we did that in the, someone donated him a really nice little farm in Putney, Vermont, just not too far out of town, not that close. And it was a nice farm. It was not like 500-acre dairy farm like my friend in upstate New York. It was like, had maybe 60, 70 acres. More than half of it was forest, and it was a really nice barn, really nice little farmhouse, and a nice, 5, 10 acres that had been a garden and been a truck garden, meaning people who had lived there. They grew their food there. They shared it with their friends, their clan. And it was really obviously it was clan because there were a couple other farmhouses around. Again, all of them kind of vacant. And so this family donated to Sensei, and he came over from Japan and set it up. And through his connects and friends in America, he got his adepts. There were 12 of us, basically 6 women and 6 guys. And most of them, we were all in the medical field in some way. I was working at a a VA hospital in Brooklyn, Fort Hamilton. And the guy in charge, I was his adept. I was his Padawan. I was just, a draft dodger. When my draft board finally caught up to me, they said, Al, we don't think we can trust you with guns. So how would you like to do alternative service? And that's exactly what I wanted. So they sent me off to Vista, and then I ended up at the VA. And right in New York, right? It was great. I could go back to my life and just go there, and it was a great job. I liked that. And I was basically a bedpan guy. But I did my me thing and talked to everyone, and I kind of lifted the juice of this place up in a way that this guy who's he was a colonel, Marine colonel, head of the place, a surgeon. He was like in his 70s. He was never going to stop doing what he was doing. And he says, I've been watching you, son. I said, sir? He goes, yeah. He said, you're going to be my protege. I said, what? He's a surgeon, right? I said, really? And he said, yes. And so he said, I said, well, you got to be kidding me. I'm a freak. And he goes, that's what I'm looking for. He goes, and he tells me the story about during World War II, he got stuck in the Philippines. He wasn't on the death march. He was up in the mountains with the freedom fighters. And he was in this little hospital. He was the allopathic doctor, surgeon. He was there with a Filipino psychic surgeon who would just kind of go in and lift the bullet out, and a Chinese herbalist who would go through the woods and get things and make potions and poultices. And he had no supplies. He had to run out of the place, and he had nothing. No tools, not even nothing, right? So he was the odd man out. He was the bedpan guy. He was watching what these guys were doing, and they were successful, right? End of war, the Chinese guy went back to China, and Mao was kind of our ally fighting the Japanese. So he went and studied Chinese medicine in China and got to know Mao, and Mao thought he was a cool guy. And, he had a 2 or 3 year stint there before the revolution happened and blah, blah, blah. And then he just started, in the places where he wanted, he had enough pull. After that whole thing of being in the Philippines, he went from being a captain to a lieutenant colonel, like that. And so he had enough friends in the Defense Department, blah, blah, blah. And he came from a pretty military family. So anyway, he got to do what he wanted, and they were happy to do it. And so he's semi-retired in Vietnam happens, and they bring him back to run Fort Hamilton. He goes, I want you to do all this stuff. So the first place I went to learn was I went to Putney, Vermont, and I showed up because he knew I was a handy guy. He said, just bring your tools. So I did. And, met Sensei, and it was this nice old, Vermont farm. And there's this guy. He's like 6'2". He's got blue eyes, but looks Japanese, and bald head, and the orange sarong and the beads and the whole thing. And so we, Sensei, and he gives us a 4-1. So, the farmhouse was big enough that the 12 of us, we could, right? And pretty much, because there were 6 girls and 6 guys, and pretty much everybody was a doctor or an administrative kind of nurse. I mean, they were all coming there to learn this new kind of medicine that they could add to the allopathic thing and make it better. That was kind of the 70s thing. And people were coming back to all the hippies and yippies and zippies were coming back from the cities, after getting beat up, and, starting communes. And so those, we were the first in that little neck of the woods of those farmhouses. And then within a few months, there was, some rich kid with a trust bought that and started his commune. Anyway, so I didn't pay it heed, but Sensei was really an amazing guy, right? Really, 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 right? So first thing we did, right, was, get packed in. Then he started saying, we got to change our diet. We're going to be vegetarians. We're going to do that. And he's talking, so the first weekish, first we had to learn, okay, sit around. He made us cups of tea. And wow, this tea is pretty amazing. And if any of you guys have ever saw the old crone, there's the 3 pots of tea. He had his 3 pots of tea too. So he showed us, I mean, he had more than three. He had like a gazillion pots of tea. So, he made us tea and showed us the importance of ceremony. And so we, did all, and I was really enamored because I kind of had, with, Grandpa Stoll and, Madame Olga Kluver and all the other mentors I had in my life up until this time. This guy fit right in, And the Maryknoll priests, he was a Shinto version of them, but a lot cooler, right? And the TV show, I had been really enamored with Kung Fu, right? So we're getting to the place of, violence and, fighting. So we, there we learn how to, tea, how to breathe, how to go in state. Then we build now we're going to build a tea house. But before that, we're going to build a bathhouse. And we're like, huh? We got it. Just no, that's a place you crap in and throw water on you. No, a bathhouse, a Japanese bathhouse, which, and he was a builder and an architect. I mean, he was everything. And so he had these plans and because I could build anything, I could plumb anything, electrify anything, do anything in a construction mode. And I'd already connected to, Love's co-creation. So I was like in that mode. So, I was his number one boy, but he's the one who told me about, low man on the totem pole. And he goes, you're the youngest here. You're not a doctor. You don't have a house in Westchester. I mean, he knew he came from Japan, but he spoke English like an Englishman, right? But not with an English language. And he was very specific about words. He said they're powerful. You got to use the right word. And I had other teachers who, so I was like right in line with everything. I'm a doctor. You can't tell me to do that. You can't make me clean the toilet. Get out. A lot of people, the first week, people who thought they were so important they couldn't work or couldn't do this, you said, bye-bye. But I paid your institution $1,000 a week. I said, bye-bye. Anyway, he said, you didn't read the fine print. So if you're a moron, get out, So one of the, so once we learned how to meditate, one of the things we did was we would do these nightly meditations where, we would, as soon as it get dark, we'd go to sleep, and we'd wake up with the sun. That was basically it. And he could come into your brain. I mean, he didn't need to, my dad used to, have a pot and a spoon, and he'd do it right next to your head and then grab you by the feet and throw you out of bed. Get out and mow the lawn, Dad, you could just say, get up. Anyway, sensei would ding, and the alarm clock would be in your head. You wouldn't hear a noise. Your eyes would just pop up and you'd be awake. You didn't be like, oh, I need my first cup of coffee. No, you'd be awake. And I still use that technique every morning to stay alive because he's still in my head and in my heart and in my consciousness. Anyway, so he would wake us up at 3 a.m, right? We'd usually go to bed around 9. And we'd done so much work, it's pretty easy to go to bed. So, and he got us on this diet. We wouldn't eat anything 4 hours before we went to sleep. And we really just had a nice breakfast, really nice breakfast. And he would do what he called the Vermont breakfast: eggs, bacon, pancakes, and whatever else you wanted, right? The first meal is an important day. And you could have, 1 cup of coffee. If you were a coffee person, you could have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. And after that, it's tea. And then within 2 weeks, you couldn't have that 1 cup of coffee. And this was what I used to get people off of drugs, this whole kind of process he used. Anyway, long story short, he'd wake us up at 3 a.m, and we would do what he would call, we'd go into state. We had this nice little meadow that had been a real nice paddock, but we had no animals, so it was a really nice meadow. And he said, this isn't where we're going to have our garden. We'll figure that out later, but this is where we're going to have our circle. And he, over in the corner in the east, we had a fire pit, where we would drum and dance. But in the middle of this meadow, he had this really beautiful rock that he had brought with him. and he put a really beautiful candle on top of it, light the candle, right? And we would stare at the candle, go into meditative state like that, right? But I could just, at first 20, percent, I'd be gone. I'd be in state. So anyway, at 3 a.m., he'd light the candle. We didn't sit down. We stood up, And the first martial art he taught us was Tai Chi, which mostly was just like, wax on, wax off, was to step and brush, with a broom. Step and brush. Right? Anyway, so we would go into state, and then we would step and brush our way into the woods. And I don't know if any of you guys have been to Vermont. Now, that is the deep green. I mean, those forests are so dark. It can have a full moon, and it's dark. It can be a sunny day, and it's dark in there, right? And so there's branches and everything, and if you're not really aware, you're going to get one up the nose, in the eye, in the ear, whatever. So as we were stepping and, sweeping, you had to be real conscious. And like I said, if you have watched me on any of John's videos of me walking, I am stepping and brooming, sweeping. And because I'm putting every foot, in Tai Chi, you put your foot down, space why it's called Tai Chi is the Chi is the energy, that is the grounding. So you're grounding yourself, right? So we would walk through the forest for an hour meditating, going in a meditative state, like not being in your, so if you even got a stick in your eye, you wouldn't notice. The only way you would notice is after you finished. If your face was all scraped up and you couldn't see out of an eye, you'd know that you weren't doing it right. But in state, you could, because you were connected. You're talking about nature, going back to nature, right? You were connected to all your relations. And all your relations isn't, Uncle Bob and Aunt Mary and your brother and your dad. No, all your relations is everything. Meaning every atom in this universe. That's your relations. Every animal, every plant, everything. When you put your foot down, just like all the trees in the forest are interconnected by their root. Their roots just don't go there and stay there. They're like this with all the other trees. And then there's the fungi. The fungi wasn't out there. There's more biomass in fungi in a forest than the trees, right? And they connect all the trees together. It's like their vagus nervous system. And also it gives certain nutrients. It's like the antibiotics of the forest, right? And that's why, chemtrails killing everything, because it's killing the fungus first, right? And so, but none of that crap matters because the energetics of it all is on another dimension. So whatever it is, it's just whatever it is. So anyway, we walked through the forest, right? And we learned how to step in our chi and how to bring the prana in and see the prana of everything else. So when that little twig or branch was about to go, I'd feel the prana of it and kind of move my head and it would go like that, right? So you were able to see the prana of every animals. They had wolves and bears and, oh my, all over that forest. But you could feel them quarter mile away when I got good at this. And so we built the bathhouse, and that was really, Japanese bath. If you haven't had one of those, that should be on your bucket list. Then we built a tea house, and then we built a hambu. Hambu is kind of the school or home, right? And it was just a big open space, with a Japanese roof and the sliding paper doors and walls and all of that. But we had a big space, and we would do our katas there, exercise, right? We do our Tai Chi, our Qigong, and then we learned Aikido, right? And Jiu-Jitsu and Kung Fu. He was a master of all three. And so a lot of the guys, and some of the girls, they had I had my black belts and this. And anyway, so they were, the only reason these people here, they weren't just morons. Some of them were, and they were gone within the first few days. But the rest of the clan, and that's what we really thought of ourselves as a clan, had training in lots of stuff other than being a doctor and a nurse and an administrator. They had, they had an esoteric side to them. And that's why we got along. And that's why, once the morons left, all those guys who had careers, they knew about my boss. And they knew about where I was working. And they kind of knew about me. Because, I was the freak over at the VA. So we got along pretty good. And what was really, if you ever seen the Harriet experiment, it was like that. And your sisters there who were talking about, the goddess energy. Well, after the two morons who left were guys. So there were 4 guys and 6 women, right? So it was definitely goddess energy, that's for sure. And my sensei, he'd been around forever. He's like that, not quite, but he's kind of like the old crone, or kind of like the master in, they called her the Ancient, the one in Doctor Strange, the movie. And that's what this was like. It was very much like Doctor Strange, the movie, because Sensei, he wasn't just a Shinto priest. He had experience. He was Dutch, he was Swiss, he was Spanish and Japanese. He had quite a pedigree. And all these people were, diplomats and scientists and spiritualists and such. And so Sensei was quite an amazing individual. So he taught us martial arts, and we were getting pretty good at it. And I myself, I was the youngest. I was, in a lot of ways more. And he said, and this is when Sensei told me the story about the low man on the totem pole. And he said, the most important animal spirit of any totem pole is the one on the bottom. He is the foundation. He is the strongest. He carries everyone on his shoulders or her shoulders. And so, when someone, when those 2 morons were thrown out, before they said, I'm not that. I'm the top of the totem pole. And he goes, that shit kid, he can do it. He can clean the toilet. He's the low man on the toilet pole. And that's when Sensei told me that story, that the most important, the strongest, the most, revered in the totem pole is the guy, the lowest man on the totem pole. So anyway, I was the lowest man on the totem pole. And after we became a clan, that was the joke, or not the joke. We all, we just laughed all the time. Sensei was just, we just were happy and giggling all the time. And part of it is because we were all having so much sex. Because it was like there was no moral obstacles. Everyone, there was no disease. Everyone was, this clan. And there were times we just puddled together in love, right? It was quite nice. This is the early 70s. And we weren't disco, we weren't we weren't no drugs, zip drugs, right? One day a week, we went to the Holiday Inn at Putney, where they had the disco and the restaurant, and we could have roast beef if we wanted it, because he was showing us, and you could drink, and somebody offered you a puff in the parking lot. He said, you do whatever you want, you want to, this is a time of fun and release, and if, you guys come from this, one day a week, not bad, right? And he showed us that, I remember one time he drank 2 bottles of vodka. And then we were all drunk. I don't drink, so I wasn't drunk. I was like the, assigned driver. But he goes, move over, I'm driving. He did that 3 different times. And each time we had interactions with police, and he didn't have a driver's license or any ID whatsoever. I don't even know how he got in the country. Probably anyway, I have no idea how we got there. But I'll tell you those stories later about Sensei and the police. But I'll go back to what you asked about violence. Okay? So, what about self-defense? Our human nature is under attack from every angle. Jesus died for our sins. No, he didn't. We have the right to fight back politically and use violence if necessary. And no, we don't. So we were taught to be warriors, right? Spiritual warriors, right? But, Shinto priests, they learned martial arts. They were the first guys to invent them, right? So the guys and some of the girls were really in beating the shit out of each other, just for the fun of it, right? And me, I would do all the katas. I would do all the exercises. I would do all the preparations, right? And I would do the forms, right? But I would not fight anyone, period, right? Wouldn't do it. And Sensei never did. Meaning I had been in going to martial arts schools, and just because I was, in this esoteric modality, and I would go with a friend or two, and usually the guy who was head of the dojo was a vicious, cruel person and beat people up just for the fun of it, throw them around, right? And so Sensei, he never did that. He taught us. He, put us through all our paces, and then so when we do sword work, he had these nice bamboo things that wouldn't really hurt you. If you got a strike, it'd like be, a snap. Would you? It was it wasn't a stick. It was a piece of bamboo. Now, if you wielded right, you could really. I mean, Sensei. I saw the Sensei take this guy out with just, it was we had planted bamboo. I love bamboo because we turned that into our construction material. And the stuff grows so fast. That is pretty amazing. Anyway, and see, nature gives you everything you need. And anyway, that's another story. So he never did that. And I would, and this one guy, he wasn't a real moron, but he could be annoying sometimes because he had to be the best. And Sensei kind of let him do that, and I did I did all the crap work. I mean, clean the toilets, did this, do that. And I would do it before anyone got up. I would go chop all the wood. I would get all the kindling. I'd start all the fires because we stayed from, June all the way to May, almost a whole year there. And when it got winter in Putney, Vermont, and I'd start all the fires and all the fireplaces, right? And I would rake. We had all these paths, right? And, we put down stone. And I would rake patterns into the stone because I read about bonsai gardens. And I tried to make our whole little acre around our hambu look like a Japanese garden because it made Sensei happy. And when he was happy, I'm going to cry again. Anyway, so I basically didn't fight, but I could do all the katas and all of the exercises better than anybody. I could do, our 3 a.m., walking, meditation better than, everybody got to stick up their nose. There wasn't a single person who didn't get, hit by the tree, but me, after we learned how to really do it. Because you really had to stay conscious. You had to stay awake. You had to stay in state. If you let it slip just a tad, you get something. It would be like that. Because the trees were so like this, right? And he would just kind of walk through them, and we had to follow him. We couldn't even see him, but we had to walk his path. That was the whole thing of being there, walk his path. So pretty much that was that. And so this guy kind of says, we always had to do the exercise where we fight. And he goes, you don't have to do that. Because he was going, Al never does it. Why does he not? And he goes, you guys do it because you want to. You don't have to do it. Put down the sticks. Don't fight anymore. Today we're not going to fight at all. And they, okay, today everybody fights. Anyway, so this guy went on. So Sensei goes, okay, Al, you're going to fight everyone. I said, what? Yep. And not only that, they're not kind of the bamboo. So, there's at the back wall where all my swords are and all my spears that have real points and can slice you up like bologna, they're going to have those. You're going to have nothing. I go, what? He goes, remember, step and sweep. So I go, yes, Sensei. I get up there, I do my kata, get ready, ground my chi, do everything, and I go into state, and I'm there, right? They got all these boys, and they're like ready to come and slice me up. They're not going to pull their punches. And he says, don't pull your punches. Go after Al. Anyway, so he's standing behind me. And so, they're about, I don't know, 50 feet from me, from where the wall, all those weapons are getting these weapons, getting ready to slice Al up into bacon. Anyway, so I'm there, and I'm not even moving because, hey, you don't move until it's time for you to move. So I'm like in state, in form, and I'm standing there. And they come rushing at me, right? And I just move my hand, into the first move of the kata, of protection, right? And everyone goes flying across the room, just through the air. It was like straight out of the Matrix. They go flying, when Mobius and Neo are first flying. It's like that, flying and smash against the wall and crash down. And like, oh! And I'm like, looking at my hands. I didn't touch these guys. They were 20 feet away from me. And they, and I turn around at Sensei, and he's smiling. And he goes, snaps his fingers, which means everyone has to sit down in front of me. He goes, now that was quite amazing, right? You had all this rage in you that you've been building up because of lots of other things from all your past lives. And for some reason, it all came out as soon as you grabbed that sword. And you were going to kill Al. You really were. I mean, you were going to kill Al. You might have felt bad about it later, but you were going to slice that little guy up into bacon. And all he did was do this, and you flew across the room. When you hit that wall, all the rage had come out of you, and you started to cry, because all the tears are on their face. And he goes, well, Al was just my hand. I mean, he had control of chi so well that he was standing right behind me. He went like this with my hand, and these guys flew across the room. I didn't quite do it. I mean, I was his sword. I was his hand. And that's what he used to call me, his hand, right? Because I did all the work, Built most of those buildings, wired everything, plumbed everything, raked everything, dug all the hills, I mean, the girls were as good workers as I was, right? The guys, there was two of them that tried, not so good, because they were like, the three guys were older, I was 19. The women were between 23 and 32, and the two guys were in their late 40s, right? And they were, bigwig surgeons and ran hospitals and stuff like that. But they, they were in good shape for what they were, right? And that's why they came and did this, and, and after that, that's when we really became a clan, Then girls never made fun of me or looked down on me. They were like, because we were out there doing the work. We were digging the holes together. We were, growing things and picking things. And because that's how we learned how to do this. So you wanted to know about, what about self-defense, right? So you go and you find yourself a good, a good martial arts school, a good hambu, Go to any dojo and say, is this a hambu? If they know what it is, if they know what the word hambu means, then it might be a good dojo. If they don't know what it is, just walk out the door. If they can't tell you what a hambu is, or, yes, this is a hambu and why it is a hambu, forget about it, right? Because otherwise it's just a mean guy who wants to beat people up and transmit that meanness. And you can't win. Read, The Art of War. If you want to learn, what is your name there? Virtual Guerrilla. If you want to learn about defense, read The Art of War, right? First, right? Then go find yourself a good martial arts teacher, and ask them if it's a hambu, right? And then you ask them what disciplines, And in the katas, do you learn Tai Chi and Qigong first? Because those are energy. That's about how to move Qi, how to hold Qi. If you can't hold Qi and move Qi, then you're never going to be able to be a self-defender, right? So in our process of walking through the forest, the deep green at night, without any light, without being able to see anything, and not getting a stick in your eye, then what defense is the bad guys coming. You sense that they're coming a mile away, and then you leave, and you're not there when they show up. The best form of self-defense is not be in conflict, not in conflict with yourself or anyone else, right? So I go around every day and I'm surrounded by people, and most of them are pissed off and upset and really, and a third of those people who are pissed off and upset, I have to interact with them for some reason. I have to get they work at, for the county or the state or the Social Security or this, and then I have to deal with them, to get what I want. And so that's what I go back to, the, art of war, and because they're at war, that's for sure, representing the state, they're at war, and you just have to interact with them in a way that they, within the first 5 seconds, they love you. They want to do whatever you want them to do, right? And you want them to do it because it's going to make them happy and make them feel, self-sustained, self-oriented, that they're doing their job and they're serving, right? Because the best feeling you can get is when you serve. Everybody serves. Problem with our present culture is that everyone serves as a slave. And that's not the best. That's not the best. There are a lot of people who are into being a slave and serving, and they can get off on that. But it doesn't take you anywhere, And you see people going on and on and on about, I want to have this, I want to have that, I want to be, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're serving sorrow, right? Or they're serving the illusion of that crap, not serving love's co-creation. So let's get back to we spent a lot of time on that one, on this virtual gorilla. I hope 89, I'm just going to call you 89. So 89, are you a girl? That kind of looks like a female there. I'm not quite sure. Jane, Satan is an archetype of either elements where we were immortals, now mortals, the shadow, Satan. We are playing catch up with Alpha Omega. I would not disagree with that, Jane. But that, like when you look in your Akashic records, you got the big screen, you got the 28 little screens looking at different angles. That's one of those screens. So you got that. You got it. But look at the other 27 screens. Go into state. Look at the big screen. Ask your librarian, give me the book on Satan and everything about what it has to do with me, blah, blah, blah. And the Alpha Omega is quantum now, time, space. Yep. That we will have to get used to being timeless immortals. But we are timeless immortals. That's what our consciousness is. This little body, our little avatar of the bag of water is, just an illusion. So we can play in the sandbox. That's basically it. And we don't have to get used to being, we already are. Whole Foods, it's just, it's like, now, are you saying Whole Foods as the supermarket or Whole Foods as foods that are whole? You have to be more specific, you know me. Sprouts, amazing. Yeah, I mean, if I could, I have to, I constantly say, I'm going to, in the next, after every time I'm going to do something like start growing sprouts, I have a cord, or it's going to snow, or as I go to the doctors, or, but I'm going to make it. That's why I want us to have a nice hambu so we could all do this together. Yeah, I could tea. Yes, I. Yes, I'm an Aquarian. How'd you guess? I'm as Aquarian as you can get. I am like a Tootsie Pup, rolled up in a ding dong, deep fried, covered in caramel and sprinkles. That's how Aquarian I am. Of course, how could you not, you know, follow the seasonal wheel? But again, I'm not a big fan of religions, even Wicca. I got some of my best friends are Wiccan, but I'm not a religious guy. I'm sorry, spiritual guy, yes, and I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I'll keep saying it. I don't believe in anything. I only have faith in love's co-creation. Okay? Do, 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 do. A Gaelic tradition festival. I love festivals, especially if we got cake. The beginning of spring. So, what day does that fall on? Bridges Day. The new season is, what is that? Limblok, also called Bridges Day. It's a Gaelic tradition. So, what part of the circle of the sun does that fall on? Spring solstice? My favorite is winter solstice because the days start getting longer from there on in. And like I said, I love celebrations. That's why, the traveling video art circus is celebration 24/7. Do, 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 do. Crone, wisdom, herbal tea, mother, worth, and Horstel, I imagine. Yes, and all the rest. Well, I love little bunnies. In the deep green there, where I am on the edge in space between North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and West Virginia, there's a big lake. Lake that has a coast of 1,200 miles around it. Two big rivers that go in, and one of them goes right through my backyard. And on the other side of my backyard is a gigantic waterfall. And the AT is like over there. And so I get a lot of people coming out of the forest, but I get a lot of animals, and a bear, and a wolf that occasionally has cubs, and a fox, and owls, and bunnies. I don't really have squirrels, but bunnies. Got a lot of bunnies. And what's interesting is they just come and visit me, and then people don't, I say, you ever see the big bear? And he's a big bear. He's like the size of my car. And what's nice about him, I have my compost pile kind of off in the forest, so the leaves and the trees and everybody and the fungi kind of intermix it, so I don't even have to turn it over. And I cover it, with a tarp, and then when I'm ready to harvest it, I kind of turn the tarp over and rake all the compost in, and then take it over to my garden. And so anyway, I take all my food scraps and everything over there, and it's a good distance from my lodge. So what's nice is that all the animals, the bunnies and the owls, they come close, and when I have a fire going and I'm sitting and meditating, they kind of join in, right? So do the other animals, but they stay respectfully on the other side of the compost pile. They don't come into, my circle. And they stay there and they lie down, they sleep, it's quite nice. They keep me company. And I had a friend over, and we were sitting there, and we had dinner. And I have a bucket, and I put all the bucket was kind of full. So I said, why don't you take that over there and dump it in the compost pile? You know, my leg hurts. So he did. He kind of got up and he walked over there and dumped it in there. And he came back screaming. And I said, what's wrong? He said, the biggest bear I've ever seen is right there. I said, didn't you notice him coming? No, it wasn't until I dumped it in there. And he kind of looked up at me and I was like, you know. He said, don't wait to get in the car. Don't wait to drive. I said, no, he'll be fine. And so he stayed there, right? And he stayed there all night. And, you know, so he kept, you know, you couldn't see him at night, but sometimes if the fire was big enough and he turned his head just right, his little eyeballs would kind of look at you. And so, and he was loads of fun, you know. And he is very similar. This book that I keep telling you about, Anastasia, you know, the Singing Cedar series. You should go get that book. Give that a read. I think all of you folks who are touting beliefs, that is a good book. You know, that would be one book worth the paper that you're reading it in. And I would get a book, and you know, you can get it on whatever format you want, but you know, paper is always the best for books like that anyway. Because if it's your book, you can write things in it. You know, you can't so much write that on a tablet. Okay, what else are we saying here? We've got the bunnies. Hey there, Mr. Research. Good morning. Looking nice and healthy. Bright smile. Hope you and everyone else are well. Yep. So, Mr. Research, did you see last night's, performance art? Me and John? Especially, so I had done 3, you know, I'd done the beginning of our, when he started, let's do a live chat. So I got my camera, he was doing, I did one. And it kind of worked out. And then I turned it off because it was like, And then I started it up again, and because the way he was sitting, it looked interesting on my screen, so I did that. And then that got, and then I got tired. We did it for about an hour, and really weren't talking about anything or doing anything other than the usual. Oh, my battery's getting low. I have to go plug it in. Anyway, and then the third one started because it was getting close to 7, and I wanted, you know, to go and be there for you guys. And then he kind of came in, and it was like, and you know, the first half hour of every 2 or 3 hour thing I do with you guys, it takes about 20 minutes for you guys to show up. Anyway, so he came in, and we were doing this thing, and I can't explain it any more than you should go look at it. And then, you know, I just turned my attention to you guys because you started to line up, and, you know, started going to state and kind of ran away. He doesn't like that. Anyway, 1 hour and 43 minutes. Well, it's almost time. I'm going to plug in my phone. So, here we go. Plugging this guy in. Well, that was a magical mystery tour. Are you guys still there? And you know, guys, just what research said, you know, he says, I saw a portion of it, couldn't really handle it, to be honest. And that's what I have to handle every day here. Okay, we're back. That's good. So we got about 20 minutes.
Jane, there you are. Everybody's here. Yep, yep, yep. I'm getting good at rebooting that. Scratch my back. So, we got about 20 minutes before I'm going to sign off, or maybe 15. So, I'm going to hear from you guys. I gave you a little story of Sensei, and whoever that was, Mr. 89 or Miss 89, who was saying, we have to kill everyone. You don't. Protection means you don't. I mean, the best fight you can have is the one you don't do. The best enemy you can have is the one that you can make a friend out of. Look at all of us here in the clan, in the cadre. We all love each other. We all care for each other. But when we started out, it was like, who are these people? And now they're your clan, right? And when we, like last night, the beginning of the chat last night, part 3, that was the real chat. The others were just little. The second one I had to take down because John was so annoyed at how he looked. So I just said, he said, you have to change the image. I said, screw it, I'll just cancel it. Bink. So, but once John, once I, put my attention to you guys and not him, he left. No matter what I said, please, John, leave, la da 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 da. And if you, go to watch this thing from the beginning, it kind of talks a little bit about what happened last night to give people a little bit of a 411 and what I have to deal with every day. And I don't really talk about it because John watches this thing like a hawk, and he'll probably, then I'll be thrown. We're going to have a big snowstorm. I really can't upset him, because then I'll have to sleep in the snow because I have nowhere to go. And it rhymes. But it'll be okay, because we're getting along better. But tonight's chat, kind of, what do you guys want to talk about? Let's see, what did I write down? Some little idea popped into my head. I had it in my notebook. What did let's see. Oh, yeah. Well, wherever you go, there you are, And that's kind of really right. I mean, because I woke up this morning, not that bad. It wasn't that painful. Not like the others yesterday. I was like hurting. It took me a good 40 minutes to get my body to be able to move. But this morning, I woke up and there were all these things, people leave things, different channels. And I look at them and there's, all these, the leak program, blah, 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 blah. All these people, right? They're like, and there's that guy, not Endeavor, Enterprise 747. You should go see that kid. That guy is plugged in. I mean, he is like living on 20 dimensions at the same time. I don't know what drugs he's on, but I go into state and kind of look at his energetics, and he. So do you ever see the screen here kind of flash a little bit, like right there? Kind of. I don't know what it is electronically or optically, but every time it does it for me, I get flashes of all your energetics. It's like shamanically, you are coming to me and I'm coming to you through the digital foray. But anyway, this kid, he is like plugged into that. So he is, like I said, Enterprise 747. I think his name is Sal. And he is, woo. And there are a couple other people like that I see. And so and I can't even explain what they're talking about. I mean, it would take too long, and we only got 15 minutes here. But they're really straight up information, but it doesn't mean that's true. They're really describing elements of this picture of the deluded illusion, right? They're not really offering any alternatives except prepare. What are you going to prepare for? How many bottles of water? How many guns? How many MREs? No. Which is just like I was talking about in martial arts. The person said, we need to be able to fight these people and kill them. No. Sorry, that's not the way to go. We have to bring, put, crying Satan over our shoulders. Say, it's all right, buddy. You know, loves co-creation, loves you. You're the best one. You really are. You don't have to, snap your fingers, break the bubble. We'll go back home, right? Not a problem. That's really what we have to do. Not fight the dark state or Donald Trump or any of the above. All of this stuff this is like worse than, did you ever see that show, Mary Hartman? Mary Hartman was like The Apprentice mixed with the Kardashians. I know it was in 1970. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Wherever you go, there you are. You got it. A good idea, Jane. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without. Amen. As in every day and every way we take the peace of the earth and make it stronger with love's co-creation. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now in the hour of our death. Amen. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without. Amen. Give us strength that we may do your service of love's co-creation, that we may bring all our relations home, where we can bring Satan back to the fold of your love's co-creation, as was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without. Amen. For there is no time, and we will always be here, eternal. Aho. Well, thank you, Jane, for reminding me. And go back and, if you missed any of this, go skip through it. It had its points, especially when I talked about, being at the Hambu with my sensei, in Putney, Vermont, in the 70s, early 70s, 70, 71-ish. Anyway, I could tell you more stories about that. That was a fun time. Especially being when we were in a clan, even though we had one, and you kind of need one semi-moron, right? The annoying one, right? Because the guys who are just stone cold, full of themselves morons, well, you got to get rid of them. They're what are called Stalinist obstructionists. You don't need that, right? But otherwise, everybody else gets on the bus, right? Let them roller skate, right? Because they're so perfect, so they know what's going on, they've worked so hard, so all these years. That's why they're the A-lister. That's why they look so good. They work, No, sorry, you do have a double chin. Sorry, you do have bags under your eyes. Sorry, who cares? What I care about is my clan and all my relations. And unless you're going to step in that circle, buddy, so the stories of Sensei in Putney, Vermont, and Vermont itself. Vermont is like, I had a lot of fun there. I'm glad I was there when I was there, because it's like every place I've ever been that has been amazing. I could have stayed another 4 or 5 years and had an amazing time, but it would have been just like Woody Allen's movie Annie Hall. After he breaks up with Annie and she goes to California to live with Paul Simon, and she's like 4 foot taller than he is. He tries to, Woody Allen tries to, he has other girlfriends, but he tries to boil the clam, the lobster, and he tries to do all the things that Annie and he did for the first time, and laughed hysterically and shared that experience. And that's what it's about, sharing the experience. Why my time in Putney, Vermont was Sensei, my time in Vermont, period, because I was in other parts of Vermont. All of my experiences there, and in New England too, living in Boston and up there in New Hampshire, all of those things were, everything I did there was a first time experience. You know, when I lived in Worcester and worked at WAAF as a DJ, and, you know, I had a great 3 months doing that, right? And over the years, I worked at WBI Pacific Radio, and I worked at WPWC, which is a college station in Long Island. On each of those, but you know, when I worked at in Worcester, WAAF, that was a commercial station. But the guy who started it, it was like a Christian station, and then he died and lent it to his son, who was like WKRP, the really crazy guy. That was him, right? And so, and he was pretty. He had been in the Korean War, so he hated war, right? And he and when the Vietnam War came, ooh, he had long hair. He smoked, you know, and his father gave, you know, in the will, he got the house because he was the only child. There was nobody left. He got a really nice house, a big chunk of change because his dad saved everything, a radio station, and a Dunkin' Donuts. And he turned it into the hippie land of, you know, anyone could crash at that house. He did small loans. The radio station, since it was a Christian radio station, it really didn't have commercials. And he also had a church. His daddy was a minister. And so, you know, he had the Church of Cannabis. He tried to make using cannabis legal as a sacrament. I mean, so that was my boss. And the radio station was 24/7 anti-war, anti-government, right? It didn't even play music, just had crazy people ranting about, you know, everything, right? And so I was the closest person to, you know, what you would call mainstream. I played music and I told stories, right? And actually, the only people who were listening to that radio station were who would listen to me. And I was from 10 p.m. till 5 in the morning. And I actually got a salary because he had a number of, you know, people who had paid his dad to advertise. And at night, they didn't have some guy ministering. They just played kind of music, all kinds of, you know, they had like a jukebox, one of those first things, like, you know, 8 tracks, and you line them up, you push the button, it just keeps playing them, right? But we, you know, and they had their commercials on the 8-track. So they had a contract, so that's where I got stuck, and I actually got a salary. And in the radio station, his dad had an office that, you know, kind of had a back room with a shower and a bathroom and a toilet and a nice little, you know, kind of like this, a little cell for a bed. And I got that, you know, and it was a nice office, you know, and the guy, he didn't want an office. So I, you know, wrote and had visitors and had little salons and did my thing there in Worcester. And Worcester has the college there, Dartmouth, I think. And so I would go over there and have my fun in my college. You know, I put on my tweed coat, be Professor Bob, and look for cute girls who were smart and bring them on, you know, especially girls who wanted to be the next Joni Mitchell. Oh, you got some songs. Hey, you can play them on the radio. So that was fun, right? And I could have easily, you know, because I had tapes of the show, I could have easily found a job somewhere else doing something similar. And then I'd be a radio guy for the rest of my life. That would have been my career. And you really don't get paid very much unless you become a star like Rush Limbaugh or Art Bell. And even Art Bell was probably the greatest, amazing guy. So I knew at that time, the guys who were doing stuff like me, my signal would kind of drift into WOR in New York because they had a big transmitter. And they had a guy named Big Wilson and another guy named Gene Shepard. And they did something very similar to me, but, more 50s, right? They were like 10, 15, 20 years older than me. And I was more in the, 60s, 70s, and Joni Mitchell and, all those kind of songs. And so that was, I could have done that, but I didn't. But then again, like maybe, when was it when I was at WBAI? Oh, I guess late 70s. It was like when I was at the Pearl Street station. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine who was I was a newspaper, was a photojournalist, and I had a buddy who was head of the Village Voice, and so he knew Steve Post, and I met Steve at a party, and he says, "Oh man, I heard you're a radio guy, DJ." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "And so you worked at that crazy station, WAF," and that's the thing about radio guys. It's like it's like a clan. All these people in that certain genre, they all know the stations, no matter, from coast to coast, yeah, other countries, right? So he goes, somebody gave me a tape. I said, "Somebody gave you a tape of my show?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, it was kind of really strange, but I liked it." And he goes, there's a guy named Bob Fast, and we have a niche that we need a guy to fill. It's 2 hours, we could maybe throw you $100 a show. I said, "Really? Whoa, that's great. Sure." Yeah, it sounds fun. So again, it was late night, and I had friends who, were actors. And so I said, we're going to do our version of the Mercury Theater, the one that, what's his name, did War of the Worlds. And I loved ancient science fiction, Jules Verne's, and there's a whole school of science fiction. It's just not, Wells and Verne. Lots of guys. There's a couple of books that I don't know if you can find them. It's called classic science fiction. And what they do is they have this Greek statue with a toga and a space helmet on his head. So you might go look for that. It's really off the hook. And that's where all of those guys who were the great, Stan Lee and all the guys of the 50s, who wrote in the Blacklist age. Anyway, so I could have been a radio guy. And I'm kind of doing my radio thing right now here on YouTube. I'm kind of doing what I did back then, right? So at WBAI, which is a Pacifica radio station, I think we were covered in all the other stations, So what I did was not only did I do this kind of theater thing, we made fun of every politician. And then, for some unknown reason, these guys wanted to go on the air and rebut what the fun we were making of them. And our fun was, we didn't even use their name. We just kind of would make up a story, and you couldn't help but realize that who we were talking about. We didn't use their name or anything. We, put them in other time zones, other places, but their personalities were so that they, so I'd say, "Hey, you want to come on and be part of the gang?" Right? So when these guys would show up, part of the whole thing was, this was a party. We started when Steve was on the air, we were in the green room drinking and puffing and noshing and just having a, generally good old time dancing. And, he'd have his show, and you could hear the thumping music of the disco in the green room because we were all dancing. And then we would conga line onto the air. I mean, that's how we started the show. And these guys would come on, and they would be who they were. But they had been in the green room, partying it up. So by the time they got on air, they were just a little bit lit. And they were already, they'd be, I had a friend, her name was Annie Sprinkle. And she was really a brilliant woman. She was a sociologist, psychologist, you name it. She was it. And her real focus was on, what people call the dark side of the American, sex workers, just everyone who's been marginalized and looked at the other. And she was brilliant. And she really made a difference. She had a friend of hers who started the first women's shelter in New York State because women were supposed to get in that thing. And the women are on the street just like the guys, but they don't have a place to go. They wouldn't let them go to the men's shelter. So we started this, and I was a contractor, so I got my buddies. She got a building in 34th Street, and we fixed it up. Right? So anyway, I was in that circle of, people who are ostracized or marginalized or looked at the other. And I really got to, I was always looked at as the other, but more as, isn't he cute? Oh, he's going to be a scientist for the Pope, or, that kind of ostracized. He's different, but hey, we can use him. We can mold him. It's like the $8 million man. Anyway, and so that were the kind of people who I would have at the studio to start off the party in the green room. People who would just like to have a good time because their life sucked. And if you there were a lot of sandwiches and booze and whatever there, they were going to have a good time. So by the time these politicians from powers, important people, would get on air with me, they were flying high. And so I don't really drink. So I had all my wits about me. So I could just like if you would go to last night's stuff and look at, or the night before when I did a live chat on John's channel. That's kind of how I did it with those politicians, but they were out of their minds. John's just John. He wasn't out of his mind. He's just John. So they got some serious blowback. So did I. After about 3 months of doing that, I got thrown off the air. But it was like everyone threw confetti and patted me on the back when I walked out of the station. That was the greatest. Too bad people are so uptight, Boy, that was so much fun. And that was the precursor for me going on television, doing in the early 80s, doing Potato Wolf under the umbrella. This is why I like nonprofit umbrellas. We had this a nonprofit umbrella called Collaborative Artists Projects. And again, it was this Humanities Artist Trust International. We had, 98% of everybody there were painters and sculptors, but I was into social art, getting people to do things to make the world better. And and Potato Wolf was that. Pretty much every show was, because, we had a group of about 8 producers. I wasn't the only guy doing the shows. They all had different ideas, and we all helped each other. I was a good cameraman. I was a good sound man. I led every show because I knew how to light things to get effect and make things look good. I mean, look what I'm doing right now with one light bulb. Look what I did last night with one Christmas light bulb. John has all these movie lights, and man, it'll light you up like you can't believe, but it also brings up every bag under your eye, every, under your chin, every pot belly, there is no escaping. I like things so you look kind of good. Now, when you really light somebody up, John didn't like the way he looked on one of the opening pictures, but it was quite extraordinary. Anybody who saw it before because I just took it down. I don't know how many messages he sent me you have to change the picture. I was going to freaking change the picture. I was just going to get rid of it. So, but he looked good. He just didn't look the way he wanted to look. But he looked the best he could look, from the angle I was shooting him. And I was shooting him from down and up, kind of this way. And it got his best line, shooting him from this side and not this side. He looks pretty good. I mean, he looks okay this way, but he really captures something this way. But he didn't like that you could see the bag there and the little thing down here. What can I say? Threw in another 3 lights, I could have taken the shadows out. But every time, don't touch the lights, just like, I keep offering him to, clean his place. He goes, I only want a woman to clean for me. I don't want a man to do it. I said, what? I said, I've done it a couple of times for you. And every time you were amazed at how, it changes your life for the better. Why wouldn't you, once a month, once a week, I don't care. Yep. CGI will make us all Ken dolls, and I don't want to be. I think I, as Sensei Albob, is cute enough. You know, I don't need no CGI. I like my eyebrows. I like my little furrows. I like the scars in my head from where my sister tried to kill me. Luckily, she knifed me in my head. You know, that was pretty hard. It just got, you know. Too bad she didn't do that. So that's why your Sensei Albob is still here. So, you know, every time I die, every time someone tries to kill me, every time a car crash, I seem to get out, you know. So obviously I'm not going nowhere until my job is done here, until I finish up. That's right. Oh my God. I like that, Sarah. I've always seen the inside of the outside. Yeah, me too, you know. And I love that Billy Crystal skit he did on, Saturday Night Live, where he was Romero or something. He was, oh, it's better to be looking good than feeling good. And he looked like a 90-year-old guy who was pasted together with 1970s CGI, right? And he would wear his little suit, and he always had something interesting to say about that, which one of my big, you know, philosophic points of view from the Institute of Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology is that one of the problems we have is that our aesthetics are built on taste, and that taste is all about image over substance. You know, that's why John wants to be buff and look good and have the right socks and blah, blah, blah. You know, looking good rather than feeling good, right? So, any other interesting thoughts here? I've always seen the inside on the outside. Yep. Boop, 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 boop. Radio. Yep. It's a great medium. But, hey, I actually I think this YouTube thing is all right. But we need a group. I mean, just imagine a gang having a traveling video art circus where we put together an amazing curriculum and we take it to colleges. Every college has what is known as a student activity fund. Every student has to kick in somewhere from $50 to $500 a semester. And that fund has anywhere from like $100,000 to $10 million in it that they have to spend every semester. They don't roll it over. And the ones that have lots of money, you know, they have the Rolling Stones come and play for their kids, whatever. But if we offered them, you know, this amazing, all of you folks there, all of the cadre, you all have amazing skills. You could all teach a class of whatever, I mean, you're herbalist, drinking piss, painting, writing, acting, you know, and we'll have a real circus, you know, one ring circus, juggling. And, you know, whoever makes really good costumes will make animal costumes. See, the beauty of theater, it's the kind of magic I like, because why I worked in theater so long is that you make this magical environment, the fourth wall, and the audience sits on the other side and they look into that other dimension over there, and they see stuff, and their imagination, you know, that costume of a lion, tiger, and bear, it really looks like a lion, tiger. It's 60 feet. If you're a good costumier, you can make that lion. And if the person inside the costume is a good actor, and Circus Oz, that's what we had. We had lions and tigers, but no bars, you know. We just had them in the center circle, and it would get people freaked out because they actually thought that was a friggin' lion, tiger, and a bear in there dancing around, and that there was nothing, you know, there was no fence between them, and if those guys ever changed their mind, they'd be eaten. And we loved and we did high wire acts, right? And we'd have the people walk up the little skinny ladder up there and get on the platform, and then walk over another platform until they were doing their high wire act and their trapeze act over the audience. And we had no net. You know, we'd have no net. But they would be only 10 feet above the audience. So the audience would be looking at them like this. And the illusion was that they watched them go up that 70-foot ladder and then, you know, be on top of the roof and then come across there. And then they'd be on top of them, right? And so if they fell 10 feet on top of the audience, right? Yeah, the audience got a little sprained maybe. But no one died. And our whole theater, our whole everything was to, project this illusion so the audience would realize that their friggin' life was an illusion. And through every little skit, every little act, we had buried a kind of shamanic lesson. So everybody went away going, their mind was expanded. So if we have the traveling video art circus going to all these colleges, right, and we're putting it down on the video that people can buy at home, right, and also putting it on the YouTube, and then staying in that college for a week where we give classes, where we roam around and ask, we have, teach-ins where people come, they sit down and we talk like they're on the chat about all the things that are going on. And then that goes across the YouTube. Just think what that would be like. And that the school would pay us something between $5,000 and $50,000 for a week, depending on how rich we are and how groovy we can get ourselves to be. And then we find a cadre there, and we plant the seed of the freely inquiring society. Freely meaning open, not free, open. Inquirement to understand. Society means an organization that stays there forever and works on doing the mission, meaning opening people's minds and trying to understand who we are, where do we come from, and what are we doing here. That's what the Freely Inquiring Society is all about, right? And it'd be set up just like a fraternity or a sorority, but instead of being exclusive, it would be for everybody. Yep, that's the albums. But I like the traveling video art circus because it's all of ours, not just Sensei Al Bob's, right? Maybe, I'll have the top hat. I'll go in and be the Sensei Al Bob and then introduce the ring leader, right? My best thing is to be not just your, in the public arena. I am like Grandpa Smurf, right? Sensei Al Bob, right? But whatever we do, it has to be all of us, not just me, because they can take me out. But if we're all doing it like the Iroquois Great Law, all being the chief, all being the scribe, all being the vibe watcher, all being the gatekeeper, and that responsibility just keeps going around in the circle. After enough time, everyone has the responsibility. And that's the only way this is going to work out. The only way we're going to fix the dysfunction of this illusion is where everyone steps up and becomes who they are, understands where they came from, and works to move forward at doing what they came here to do, right? That's the traveling video art circus, right? But it's umbrellaed by the nonprofit 501c3 of the Humanities Artist Trust, which that's something all institutions like colleges and the Ford Foundation and the National Endowment of the Arts and all those guys can go, oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, we'll give them money, And the Institute, those guys love institutes. I've worked for so many. So the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology. The Council on Foreign Relations will love to bring us in. And that's how we sneak in and change who they are. Right? That's how, the Satan will go, wow. Lucifer will go, woo. Yeah, I want to be part of that. And that's where buddy, it's all right. We love you. Loves co-creation. Loves you. Come on, snap the fingers, bust the bubble, You got it, kids. That's, as the guy entering into the spotlight, the house lights go down, everything's dark, the song starts to play, that sweet voice of our band and our singers, our chorus starts singing, and then I slowly move out into the middle of the ring, and then the spotlights, right? That'll be me. right? Dancing around to the music, right? Getting everyone in a jolly sense. Like whenever I don't know if you've ever been to like, the Tonight Show or any of those kind of shows, with you know, the guys who get up there and do the monologue, right? And they got the audience there. Well, they have a guy like me who comes out first and warms up the audience, the fluffer. And that'd be me. So, but I would be also your Sensei Al Bob, moving the show along, and yet, when it came time to talk to the authorities or the powers that be, we would all go, but I would be the person who would, again, fluff up the authorities, get them warmed up, and then turn them over to the rest of the clan. That's my job. And on every aspect, it's like the grandma, the Grandpa Smurf. We don't set the agenda. We facilitate its movement. Someone last night says that you said, Sensei, you point the way, right? Yes, that first little baby step. Yeah, with all the smoke, places where I hate to say this, but I did that back in 1970 something or other. I think it was 76 with because the laser had been around a long time, and the Museum of Lasography in Soho was in the early 70s, and I used to wire that guy's stuff. So I had a lot of ruby lasers, not a lot, but enough of them to play with. But before, 1976, I met Donna in 77. So that was another, and I keep doing that. I was saying that deja vu is like you're going down the railroad tracks. Your one foot is on one track, your other foot's on the other. Someone throws a switch, and then one of those tracks goes this way, like this way, and your other foot's going that way. And that sense of deja vu, is that you're in two places at once, and then the rubber band snaps and you're in one or the other. And then you're going along and everything's just like it was. And I think that's a lot what the Mandela effect is. That's why people, didn't that used to be pink? It's because they bing and went on to another track. Yep. So, okay. Oh, look at that. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. Okay, that was our synchronistic moment, and we'll it's probably pushing towards 12 or 1 o'clock. So I'm going to see how my stew is doing, and I love you guys. So I'll see you tonight at 7, right? Okay, and we're going to try and work on wherever you are. No, wherever you go, there you are, right? And we're going to pick that one apart. We're going to suss it out. That's a pirate word, like parlay, suss, right? The code. These are all and these are great words because you really can't use, it's like how they took liberals. Well, liberals were always, you know what a liberal is? I'll leave you with this. A liberal is someone who feels guilty about prejudice, being prejudiced. And when I tell people this, they go, some of my best friends are black. And I go, no, that's racist. She goes, then what's prejudice? And I say, believing in your opinion to be true. That's prejudice. You don't have an open mind. And I just walk away. It's like I drop the microphone and walk away. And that's what I can do for this whole little project that we're going to do, I can take the heat. I can, point the way. I can keep our eye on the ball and have everyone doing what they want to do, loving what they want to do, being happy because they're making others happy, and being at home with their clan. Traveling around America and the planet with the traveling video art circus, that sounds like a pretty fun in the nicest hotels, staying at people's homes, staying in our big tent when we have none of that, and inviting everyone who has nothing to come and visit us. This will be our hallmark. We will be the new Dharma bums. They will be singing, songs of us in the mead house, We will be remembered as bards. Doesn't that sound like a good idea? I think so. So, wherever you go, there you are. I love you guys. Catch you later. I'll wait till 25 seconds. I love you. I love you. I love you. Have a great day. Be good. Be happy. Keep your life on the sunny side. Always